Hello, hello. Welcome for another episode of Market Leader Live. Hey, it's your host with the most, your main man, Darren M. Palmer. Excited to be with you for another episode where I interview those who are making a difference locally and globally, industry leaders or whatnot, far as being titans. Today we have on Dan Nicholson. Say hello to the people, Dan, if you don't mind.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
Awesome, awesome. We're glad to have you, Dan. And for those who know how the show goes, I get out the way a little bit. And if you don't mind, Dan, just share with the people a little bit about you and what do you currently do?
Yeah, so I guess answering the first part a little bit about me. So mostly what I do is try and wear cool dinosaur sweaters, but no, otherwise, I was the cliche kid growing up scheming on business ideas. My parents trying to rein me in. First person in my family to go to college and ended up getting an accounting degree, mostly because it's the most masochistic of the business degrees. It's the kids who are there studying the latest with the most amount of homework and all that. For whatever reason, that resonated with me, but also a surprising number of CEOs have accounting background. So I just thought that was going to put me in the best kind of position to be an entrepreneur. And then I went in a whole other path for a while of kind of doing the exact opposite. So I did a fellowship at the board that writes all the accounting standards in the US. So that's sort of if you graduated law school and clerk for the Supreme Court, that would be the sort of equivalent in the accounting side of things. Didn't feel like I could pass it up. Again, first person in my family to go to college and sort of one of these like quote unquote once in a lifetime opportunities. But that set me on a whole different path for a while, where I was the accounting standard I worked on was derivatives and hedging, and so I won't bore you guys with that. But now all of a sudden I'm unintentionally this so-called derivatives and hedge accounting expert, and had a little bit of a quarter-life crisis. Moved around a little bit. Worked for a Warren Buffett-backed company, getting ready to go public. Worked for Steve Loudon, who's the current CFO of Roku, if you're familiar with that device, and then finally realized about 10 years ago, long story long, maybe I'm pretty good at this accounting finance thing. And there's a huge gap, in my opinion, for small business owners being informed around what I call financial certainty. So how do you as a small business owner actually achieve financial certainty? And what is it about the people who are super wealthy that the folks who are not, what are they doing that the average small business owner is not? So I spent the last 10 years researching and working with thousands of business owners to achieve financial certainty.
And I'm glad that you're sharing that, Dan, because our audience definitely are full of entrepreneurs and business owners or whatnot who listen to this show. And some of the nuggets and the things that Dan is sharing that I want those who are listening is to please just be aware. I want to just keep it simple for a moment of being aware of, be aware of what you don't know, so to speak. And when you got someone who has the expertise, who has the forte of doing this financial piece, just like Dan, then these are the keys that you need to keep in mind for as how do you have that happy ending? How do you develop? How do you cultivate your company? How do you cultivate your processes? How do you streamline things to make sure that, yes, you want to be that maverick. You had that aha. You had the epiphany. You want to ride off into the sunset or whatnot, like an old school Western or a John Wayne movie or whatnot. And we know that we want it. We want you to be like Top Gun with Tom Cruise. We understand all that moment or whatnot. But at the end of the day, if you don't have structure, if you don't have the right team built out, if you don't have people that can help facilitate where you may have an Achilles heel for us to have the proper vision, then you can find yourself in the graveyard of other entrepreneurs and business owners who wasn't savvy by getting with the right people, similar to Dan. And Dan, I know that you shared that you saw this, but I like to share this. Your pain is your product, and I believe that you are the poster child of that because you saw the pain that other individuals were going through, so you found a way to fill that gap. Can you take us back a little bit to what was that epiphany? What was that aha moment where you realized it might not have been one step or one pill you took just to make that quantum leap, But what was the thing that happened that you say, you know what? I've worked with these big companies, these Fortune 500 or whatnot companies. I need to help these small business owners or whatnot get clarity on what they need to do. What was that moment? Could you take us back to that a little bit?
Yeah, there are a couple inflection points that led me down the path. One, I decided, it was about 12 years ago, that I was going to do a little bit of tax work on the side. I'd never really done any tax preparation stuff. But it's like I want to, as a CPA, friends are always asking you tax advice. It's sort of like if you're a doctor, doesn't matter what your specialty is, they assume that you know something about it. So I kept getting these questions, and I didn't really have the answers to it. And so I wanted to just get a little bit of experience there. And so I interned sort of in nights and weekends helping a small CPA firm shop. It was a lady of practice of one. She'd been doing it for 30 years. And I asked her a question. It was like, hey, I've got a friend who's trying to decide between being a partnership and an S corp. What are the differences? And what would you suggest that I do? And her response was, it doesn't really matter. And I did take a couple tax classes in college. I took the CPA exam. There's tax on that. I'm pretty sure there are differences. I'm pretty sure it matters. And that was just sort of this pause of reflection of, hold on, this lady's been doing this for 30 years. Her clients love her. She doesn't really know how to plan or advise clients strategically. And that just seemed odd to me. So I started looking at the data as the nerd that I am. And what I saw was 42,000 accounting firms in the US. If you have 10 people, you're the 400th biggest firm, which basically means that almost every small business, almost every individual, unless you're really high net worth, is working with a lady like, or a CPA like this person who's getting really generic advice, and that most CPAs, and it's maybe appropriate that I have this dinosaur shirt on today, it's happenstance, but most CPAs are archaeologists. They just dig up the past, truly. And that's not planning. That's not being proactive. You think about the folks who are super wealthy, who've really achieved something. They're not focused on the past, right? They have a team who's focused on the future. And that was sort of that inflection moment to go, I think there's a real opportunity here to help a lot of people pivot from having a relationship with an archaeologist to having someone who's looking toward the future.
Woo, my man Dan is dropping value bombs on us today, people. I'm telling you. The key, hey, we're not here to hunt dinosaurs. I know my 5-year-old youngest son, he loves dinosaurs, so I know we'll be picking up on that later on if he watches this episode. But for those who are business owners, there comes a time, and Dan, I'm telling you, with the consulting and the work that we do with authors as well, people find themselves in that place that, wait a minute, I might have crossed over. Yep. And now I'm an entrepreneur, or now I have some investment properties, or now I'm growing. I'm not just at the 9 to 5 anymore, or I might be doing something on the side. And now I'm finding a place and it's not knocking in the places out there, but this is not like some income tax type of taxes that I need to do now. I need strategy. I need to be strategic on how I'm positioning myself or whatnot, how I'm protecting my assets. I need real answers. I don't need someone who's just, who has basically a doctorate in just data entry. Nothing against anyone, just, clicking if it's on 7A or 9B, they're just putting the actual number through a document or a sheet that they see. You want real solutions, real answers to be able to help you out. Because if not, I've seen it, Dan, and I know that if you experienced or at least heard about it in your field, that you can find yourself that the government doesn't care that you had been doing business and it was a sweet little young lady that you was working with. You're going to be held responsible as a business owner if you have the wrong shelter, or even worse, if you find yourself in a lawsuit. Can you believe it? We're in America and there are lawsuits. I know some of y'all, I'm giving you breaking news right here, but you can find yourself in a lawsuit and you can think you have something that you actually don't have. And so if someone tells you it doesn't matter between an LLP or the LLC or S Corp or DBA, and you left with a DBA and something happens, and now all of a sudden everything that you worked so hard for, even if it came from a different type of investment, now all of a sudden it's gone and burnt down, or it's gone with the wind or whatnot, like Clark Gable, because you wasn't properly protected. So Dan, can you kind of speak to that? Do you feel like that am I going in the right direction for making those who are listening to this know the importance that they need to get to another level? They don't just need to go to the local little tax place in Walmart or whatnot to make sure if they're growing their business with the right strategies?
Yeah, no, I think you are. And what comes to mind right away is if you imagine just sort of a x-axis and y-axis, and we sort of got time going across. Most business owners, when they first get started, and I've had somewhere around 3,000 conversations with business owners over the last 10 years, is there's this assumption that over time, cash is just going to keep going up. And underpinning that is sort of this idea of, if I just keep working at it and keep working harder, I'm going to get there. And that somehow cash is the output of effort. And if I just keep working at it. And what ends up happening, a few months in or over the course of a year, is that cash is all over the place, right? It's like, hey, all of a sudden I have more money than I ever had. And then somehow 2 months later, I don't have anything. How did that happen? Right. And so the thing that is going up over time in pursuit of all of this additional cash flow is risk. And so risk is the thing that keeps going up, largely because of a couple different reasons. The business owners don't have a framework to identify risk, so they don't know all the risks in their business. And then on top of that, because they don't know all the risks, they're not able to eliminate them. And so risk shows up in the bank account balance all over the place. It shows up in the fire drills that you're constantly having to deal with. And so we have to, across every piece of our business, we have to have the right resources, advisors, et cetera, to help us identify risk. One risk that you were speaking to is just, we got the wrong legal structures. We don't have the right tax plan. That's one risk. But we need to systematically eliminate risk and have the right framework to do that.
I love that. Systems. I know, and I want y'all to understand it. That's very important to have the right metrics too, as well, in those different areas, so you can see, oh, wait a minute, is this too hot? Am I getting close to overheating or whatnot when it comes to some of the things that I'm doing? Am I allocating funds in the wrong areas? And I like that. It's similar to like a balloon payment. Dan, that's what I like to allude to when I'm sharing the example of that. Most of us have that mirage feeling, a vibe, or that oasis in the desert when it comes to entrepreneurship and business owners, that, like you said, if we just continue to grind, the grind word that everyone has on every meme or post on social media, that sooner or later we're going to outwork the situation and not have systems that's going to allow for us to have a balloon payment, and somewhere under the rainbow we're going to find our pot of gold or whatnot. But most of us will end up knowing that we'll never find the rainbow, and we'll never see the leprechaun, and we'll never see the gold, because we haven't systematically did the things that we were supposed to do to allow for us to be able to scale or whatnot, predictably or whatnot. And so, Dan, someone's listening to this right now and they're saying to themselves, hey, I love it. Cool. Dan had some time with, working for an organization with Warren Buffett, the Roku situation. This stuff is making sense. Darren is pointing stuff out about the systems. We need to pay attention to it. But for those who are listening right now, Dan, if you don't mind, could you give us 2 to 3 steps, man, for a person who know that they are right here, but where do they start? Like, what is it? A book they need to get? Is it someone they need to reach out to? Let's kind of get to some practical, tangible steps that someone can implement. I know you can't share it all right now in this episode. We'll have your information, how they can connect with you. But what would they need to do immediately that you think to start turning the tide of this situation?
So you said a couple of words that I think are really important to emphasize, which is where to start. So Google Maps doesn't work if you don't tell it where you're at right now and where you want to go, right? It could give you really awesome directions, but if you give it the wrong current location or the wrong final destination, the directions are irrelevant. So understanding fundamentally your current position, where you're at right now, is essential to where you want to go. And so I wanted to just emphasize that. I have 4 fundamental assumptions that I make. I just want to say them really quickly. Number 1, every action you take needs to get you closer to the things that you want. So every action that we're taking needs to get us closer to the things that we want. Number 2 is that almost every business decision that we face is a preference-based decision, meaning you can't just go Google it. Number 3, every business decision is a financial decision. They're not somehow separate. And number 4 is that we want to consistently make asymmetric bets. Those are the bets where the upside is substantially greater than the downside. Jeff Bezos has a quote, I'm paraphrasing, but it's something to the effect of, if you told me that I had a 10% probability of getting 100x return, I'd take that every time, right? Because the upside is substantially greater than the downside. So those are the 4 fundamental assumptions that I tell folks that underpins everything that I teach. And so if every action is going to get us closer to the things that we want, and almost every decision that we face is a preference-based decision, then what does that mean? That means we have to start with defining what I call our profit priorities, the things that we want. I have a whole methodology for this. I built an app called the Certainty app that does it for you as well. But basically, you put in your core priorities, the priorities everyone has, fund reserves, pay off debt, fund retirement, or the amount you need to not have to work anymore. Core priorities, so define those. And then define your preference-based priorities, the things that are unique to you. You can see in the background, I got my daughter in my office. That's one of my priorities, right? College maybe, a wedding, so on and so forth. So we want to define our core priorities, our preference-based priorities. The combination of the two, that's your unique definition of wealth. So get those down. What are they? How much do you need to fund them? When do you want to achieve that by? So what are your priorities? How much do they cost? When do you want to fund it by? One of my priorities going into this year was to get 10 more hours of white space per week. So while that's intangible, I could put a date to it. I could put a dollar value. Turns out it cost me $2,500 a month to achieve that, to fund that. Once I have that down, now I know my current position, and I've taken something that is vague or multivariable, and I've turned it into an equation. Because if I know the things, what they cost, when I want them by, and I know my current assets and my current cash flow, I can actually calculate, am I making enough to hit all those objectives? And if not, how much more do I need? So we assume we always need more. But before I start helping people re-engineer their cash flow, optimize their taxes, because optimizing taxes is about having more cash flow ultimately. Before I talk to them about hedging downside risk, I want to know current position, what are your priorities? What do we have? Can we fund all that stuff now? Because the assumption is always more, but in pursuit of more, we might add so much more additional risk that we got further away, not closer. So that's sort of my starting methodology, understand our current position, profit priorities, how much more do we actually need to make? Then we can optimize and see how we keep more of what we're already making. Then we start figuring out what types of revenue generation stuff are we going to employ to get there faster. So I dropped a bunch of information. Hopefully that all made sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense, and that's what I was asking for. So those who are tuning into this, keep this in mind. That's the like the meat and potatoes of it, so to speak, where you're getting these tangible steps. So now, Dan, he made it practical for us. So we're not over here in woo-woo land, and you can't say, well, Dan, you brought up this great ideas, and man, it was great with the quotes, but what am I supposed to do? Darren, you brought this guy on, you're saying that it's relevant, and you're saying that it's important to have this, and if I'm not using the person at the little kiosk or whatnot in the mall, then who am I going to use? But these are the things to think about, and I love that because it's like something that we do with our company, Dan, is more of a tailor-made approach. And I love that you allow for us to reflect and look at the man, the woman in the mirror, whatnot, to be able to have an understanding that it's in the eye of the beholder, that there are certain elements, Dan, that you might want to help me all day long, but I have to answer some of these questions. It's about what I actually want. It's about what my significant other or my spouse or what I want for my children, or if you don't have children, or whatever that situation may look like. You might be you starting a business because you've worked several years at a local steel mill, and now all of a sudden you were furloughed and you're ready to transition. It might be taking on that new class and starting a little artsy type business, whatever that thing is for you, or more times with the grandkids and downsizing and moving to another state, whatever that is, it's for you. So the things that he's given us is allowing for us to be creative, and what Jeff Bezos need and what you need are two different things. And I want to go back to this too as well, Dan, of the brilliance of what you brought up. I like to use this out of one of my favorite books. It was a character that someone told him and asked him, "What's in your hand?" And something that I live by is what's in your hand. Typically, it's already in the house. It's already within us. So when you brought that up, Dan, of the importance, before you start coming up with all these little tricky solutions and things like that people need to do, hey, what do you have right now? You might actually have more than most of the time you have more than what you think you have, but because you're not aware, because you're not conscious of it, it might be going to the local coffee house. It might be going to renting some ATVs or something during the weekend that you hadn't thought nothing about. But you're saying you want this, but your actions are showing the opposite, the polar opposite or whatnot. So, Dan, before we get out of here, I want to be respectful of your time. And we definitely want to have you come back for some of our conferences and events that we have, especially during this time virtually. But I think that what you do is helping so many lives. And I want to speak for the countless entrepreneurs and business owners out there who might not ever get the opportunity to tell you this, but I just want to tell you, thank you for what you do, because it's needed. And we got plenty of people with the rented yachts and the Lambos and all the followers, but we have some real entrepreneurs and business owners who really care about their families, who want the best, but they really, my brother, they really just don't know what are the steps to do. They just knew that they wanted to have financial freedom. They knew they wanted to, be able to do something nice. They wanted to be able to go to the recital where I feel like they were going to be fired for it because they wanted to go see their kids more or catch the soccer game or coach. And now they find themselves with a horror of a business because they don't have these things that you're teaching. So I wanted to say thank you on behalf as a representative of all these entrepreneurs and business owners who are listening to this. And if you don't mind, please share with us, how can they connect with you? Any social media handles, website information, materials, books, whatever you have, please share that with our audience if you don't mind, Dan.
So I give away a ton of free stuff at profitflywheel.com. So we do a lot of free trainings, and I have a bunch of workbooks and things that we give away, and they're all all go back to those 4 fundamental assumptions about getting close. Ultimately, let's get closer to the things you want. So if anything, closer is better than more, because in pursuit of more, you might get further away from what you want. So it's ironic, but in pursuit of more, you might get further away. One of my core 13 principles that I teach is never water the weeds. I watch my neighbors do this. They built a beautiful or added a beautiful sprinkler system to their backyard, but they didn't actually rip out the sod. So I've just been watching them water their weeds. And it's like, you're getting in pursuit of more, maybe more time or more beautiful grass. You actually didn't do the things necessary. So you're getting further away. You're just watering these weeds. Are getting taller and taller and taller. More of them are showing up. And so the danger is always in pursuit of more. We get further away when we want to get closer. We can't get closer unless we define what that is. So Profit Flywheel is where I give away most of my stuff, and that's sort of the entryway into the stuff that I'm doing around certainty.
Man, I got to tell you, I got to use that again. I got to give you credit for my man. Dan said, Don't water the weeds. The dangers of pursuing more, you're getting further away from your dreams and goals. That is an excellent analogy, example of what so many of us doing. You know, we call ourselves 10Xing, but we're 10Xing our way right out of the dream, my friend. And
Right.
so for those who listen to, some of you, it might be meant for you to be a 5-person operation.
Yeah, there's literally no right or wrong. That's
it.
Probably the thing I'm trying to convey the most is that you could be the minimalist, or you could be the person on the other end. I have both types of clients.
Yeah.
I have extremely liberal clients. I have extremely conservative clients. Guess what? Everyone wants the same stuff. They kill each other if they're in the same room. Everyone wants certainty. And certainty is the way they define it, the things that they really want. And so they have to get closer to that.
Awesome. Well, Dan, man, we appreciate you, man. We're grateful for having you on Market Leader Live. And we're grateful for our co-host, our beautiful co-host back there or whatnot. She's ready. Oh, hey, young lady, how you doing?
Can you wave?
Hey.
Got a little Christmas tree you brought into the office.
Oh yeah. That's awesome.
I was talking about 10 more hours of free time. So I got an office by my house, and now I have their art table, and I just try and show them that work is not a bad thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now I had mine here the whole time. That's why I could identify with it. I still got like a Crayola right over to the side and a power wheel. You just can't see it on air or whatnot, because we did the same thing with ours or whatnot, with them being able to school and come to the office to see our meetings, the whole nine. But I just wanted to have this interview, and I just want to thank you again, Dan. And for those who are listening, make sure that you connect with Dan or whatnot. We're going to have the information, profitflywheel.com. We'll have all that information in our show notes. But connect with Dan, get the information, implement what you're getting from Dan or whatnot, because information alone is not power. You have to implement, you have to follow the steps. It's okay if you didn't know. The problem is if you choose to stay there. So make sure that you don't acquiesce to known hells, forfeiting unknown heavens. Until next time, remember, if you won't change, be the change. Be blessed and be great.